Earlier?
Ready?
Are we coming back from dinner? Congratulations, Kite Head.
Really was good time there.
It wasn't bad.
6:30, call meeting order. Council met with staff in closed session and gave direction. All members are present. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we get to spend together. Bless our policemen and firemen, and help us make decisions for our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Alright. A full house tonight. Proclamations, recognitions, appointments, and presentations. Tonight we have introduction of Corning Volunteer Fire Department officers by Fire Chief Tom Thomason.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This year's 2022 officers for the Corning Volunteer Fire Department. We have 3 captains, 2 assistant chiefs. First captain sitting right there, Rocky Peterson. Our newest captain, Billy Wooten. Third captain, Jared Smith. Second assistant chief, Jeff Nelson. And first assistant chief, Damon Schler. And one of our openings came open because Councilman Demo decided to step down after many years of being an officer. He's still with the department, but he stepped down as being an officer. We thank him for all of his time and effort that he put into the department as an officer. He's still there doing good stuff for the department. So. And these guys, 2022, they're voted on by their peers, by the department. Each year we have a new election, and these guys are voted for the 2022 officer. So, thank you.
Tommy, are they all here?
Yes.
Could we get the others for your picture real quick?
You what?
Could they all stand up for your picture?
Sure.
Thanks.
As long as she's had a picture.
Yeah, come on, guys, stand up there by the mic and let Julie get a picture of you, including you, Thomas.
I have to say that, one month ago,
Cops do want to be firemen.
I called the fire department, and they were amazing. My cousin fell and broke her back and her pelvis, and you guys were amazing with her, and with all of the other seniors that were there, and I really appreciate it a lot.
Let's do it.
Not great, but she feels a little better.
Not even a warm up, not even one.
Julie's a professional, she doesn't need any practice.
Hey, Tom, we're just happy she was on time for a change.
Yeah. Normally be doing that picture after the meeting.
Yeah, thanks, tell me, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
We got fire stuff to do.
I like them dark shirts too, that remind me of cops.
We cooking those. Alright, that's the only one we got tonight. Public comments and business from the floor. If there's any member of the audience that would like to speak on a matter that is not agendized, now is your time to do so. Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, I'm going to close public comment.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to briefly speak to you about some current staffing with the City of Corning. Tonight you'll hear about a stable budget, which I believe large portion of this contributes to major aid, a public safety tax voted in by the residents several years ago. In my 20 plus years of service with the City of Corning, most staffing levels have stayed stagnant with frozen positions or just dropped off. It is widely known that the growth of Corning has increased from the years past. With several new housing developments, a transitional housing complex, plans for an additional park, rec center, potential introduction of new businesses, and a prospective large development. Each of these having an impact on the growth that carries an extra workload for current city staff. You've noticed the committed superior service on the rear fenders of our patrol vehicles. That commitment to such service is going to mean growth to the city staff to accommodate and positive growth of my beloved hometown. I would ask that the council be mindful of this growth and start conversing about current staffing. With the utmost respect, I thank you.
Thank you, Chief Pierce. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? If not, we'll close public comment. Move on to the consent agenda. There are a couple out of the ordinary items on the consent agenda tonight. It's a resignation of Planning Commissioner J.C. Pendergraft and a letter to support Tama County Recycling Market Development Zone. Is there any of these items that you guys would like to have pulled to discuss? If not, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move we accept consent agenda items 2 through 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. Nothing removed from the consent agenda. Move on to the regular agenda. Item number 9, presentation and acceptance of the annual city audit for fiscal year 2020-2021. And I do not see him.
John Reynolds here, do you mind moving to the
Yeah.
item 10, and then we could follow up?
Yeah, if he doesn't show up, then we can improvise. So we will move on to item 10, annual mid-year budget review and general discussion, fiscal year 21-22. That would be Christia.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm going to move over here so I can see everybody. My ultimate goal in presenting the mid-year and the budget to you each year is to make sure that I am being transparent, clear, and concise. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out, and I'd love to expand on any items more in detail with you. But with that, I will try to provide a little snapshot of how we are faring at the mid-year point for fiscal year 21-2022. And we'll start off by looking at revenue from the general fund and the enterprise funds, and then move on to expenditures. From a revenue standpoint from the general fund, which includes both the general fund and what I call the Measure A fund, which is Fund 002, we are faring very well this fiscal year. We're almost up to the point where we're returning to pre-pandemic levels. If you also saw a CPI increase or a growth in the city each year. We can expect to receive $430,000 more than budgeted this fiscal year, or just over $3.66 million. I also expect to come in about $180,000 higher for the Measure A fund. The budget is proposed to be increased for the Measure A fund accordingly to $1.35 million. Transient occupancy tax, which is the hotel tax when visitors come and stay in our hotels, those receipts are coming in higher than originally anticipated as well. They were very low last year, and they are bumping back up almost to pre-pandemic levels. Certainly not as high as during the campfire. If you remember, we saw or experienced a huge bump in CRC, but getting close to that point. I do expect COC revenues to come in higher to the tune, let me do the math, to $120,000 higher than budgeted, at $645,000. Vehicle license fees are looking good. We do expect those to come in approximately $60,000 higher than budgeted as well. And the budget is proposed to be increased accordingly. Moving on to building permit and plan check fees. Building permit fees are proposed to be reduced $30,000 to $120,000. And plan check fees are proposed to be increased from $5,000 to $30,000. or be increased by $5,000 to $30,000. And then I'm proposing a bunch of other really minor miscellaneous adjustments. I'm not going to go through each of them in detail, but the totality of these adjustments equates to a $1,500 decrease in revenue total. Moving on to enterprise funds. Enterprise funds have to be used for a specific purpose. So I cannot use sewer fund revenue received to support general funds like the police department unless they're doing sewer-related work. Make sense? So within that, unless you want to fix some sewer drains, we might need it at some point. But within that, sewer revenues are coming in as expected this fiscal year, but expenditures for electricity, which you're going to hear throughout, are coming in much higher than budgeted. The same thing goes for the water fund. Water revenues are coming in as expected, but also electricity costs are coming in much higher, and we're proposing to increase electricity expenditures by $70,000 to $300,000 this fiscal year. I just want to make sure that the council keeps in mind that we do have over $100,000 in bad debt for water and sewer. Typically, prior to the pandemic, we would run about $25,000 in bad debt that was plus 90 days. Right now, at this moment, we're above $150,000. We do have two possibilities for recouping those funds. One is the CDBG, or the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus 1 Utility Payment Assistance Program, which our residents can apply for grant dollars if they've been financially impacted by COVID for water, sewer, PG&E, or internet costs that they owe back monies on. And then the other program that's offered by the state is the California Arrearages Grant Program that will pay the city directly. We've actually already received one payment for some of that bad debt, but it's just for a snapshot in time. It won't encompass the entire period of bad debt that the city is experiencing. And then I'll move you over to expenditures. I tried to summarize it pretty simply in Exhibit A for you to look at with a reasoning for those budget modifications or proposed budget modifications. And unless the council or the public would like me to, I'm not going to go through each one individually, but I'll give some big highlights. So we are experiencing some increases in comp time cash or overtime costs in fire dispatch and police dispatch. These increases in costs are due to medical leave, COVID leave, etc. We're also proposing to increase the budget for parks capital outlay by $277,000. This is to encompass the direction that staff received to complete maintenance work on the Clark Park parking lot, which is estimated to cost $250,000. And then for additional capital outlay for Clark Park improvements at the tennis court. It is not anticipated a full renovation of Woodson Park. Bathrooms will be completed this year, so if the council still has that as a priority, we will need to re-budget that next year. And then also, this is grant funded, but we do need to actually insert it in the budget for the improvements to Children's Park, Northside Park, and $50,000 of Clark Park grant funded improvements. The other major items that you're going to see a lot of budget modifications are for, as I said before, electricity. And what this is that if you recall back in 2018 when we did the energy efficiency improvements where we replaced HVAC units and switched all the lights out to LEDs, an on-bill financing program. Well, PG&E finally has gotten, that project finalized, and so we are now paying back those costs incurred. And so while we are experiencing increases, it only appears to be increases because we've been saving for the last 2 years from those energy efficiency improvements that were made. Does that make sense? So within that, total proposed general fund budget adjustments come out to $586,847. Total proposed water fund budget adjustments total $70,000, and total sewer fund budget adjustments total $1,400, for a grand total of $658,247.
I do want to make one statement on that. One of the budget adjustments for the parking lot of Clark Park was an adjustment because it was left out of the budget. That was directed during the last budget cycle. So it's not something that we're doing mid-year through the year. This is something that was missed and caught and is being fixed now, but this was budgeted last year, was supposed to be put in the budget, and it got missed. So it's not an adjustment that we're approving now. It had been approved with the prior budget.
That's true. So the total fund balance as of June 30th, 2021 is $4,723,051 for the general fund. This does include the Measure A fund balance. The total fund balance projected, granted this is just a projection based on current expenditures and revenue assumptions, is anticipated to be $4,793,902, including the Measure A fund. These fund reserves are necessary to provide stability within the city during the next economic downturn. But also, the city is at the point where we can start looking at future needs of the city and priorities. Like, what is the long-term vision of the city? Long-term employment and long-term facility needs of the city. While we do a good job these days depreciating our equipment costs, we still do not depreciate our facilities, our playgrounds, our parks, or our streets beyond what is annually appropriated through street taxes. And so those ideally would also be incorporated. So when the city grows, it has a building or the money for a building to be for staff to reside in. Otherwise, we could be in a situation where, I'll just give you an example. We're pretty close to being outgrown this side of City Hall, aside from the storage area. If no monies are set aside in the future, when we need to grow as a city for staff, there won't be any place for staff to reside in the office. So all in all, the city is in a much better fiscal condition because of Measure A revenue. The city is at a point where it can begin, as part of its strategic planning process, to really focus its efforts and budget priorities on improvements of value to the community, while keeping in mind on existing staffing and workload levels. And that concludes my budget presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Dave, Shelley?
I don't really have anything, just all numbers and...
Karen?
Judy?
Well, I thank you for your time and spelling that out for everybody. Like I said, it's a mid-year budget presentation. I know, when do you have departments start looking at next year's budget? Because that's due in what, June, end of June?
Yeah, we typically start in April, but if council wants to change priorities and look at like long-term vision that would be incorporated in this next budget cycle, we would literally need to start pretty immediately to understand what those priorities are.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we are in a hard position because the city, we are trying to grow the city and do the best we can for our community. You know, a lot of our services struggle. I know the PD is short-staffed. I know Public Works is short-staffed. I know City Hall is short-staffed. My personal opinion is I think we definitely need to start taking a look at long-term remedies in all of our departments moving forward. So if you guys need more time to do that, that's something that we should probably start doing so that when we go into this next budget session, everybody has a good idea of what we can and can't do instead of, we didn't have enough time to look at it. So that would be my suggestion. I don't know what the rest of you feel.
Public safety is always number one, and then city maintenance is a close second. I mean, you know, we've got to keep things functioning in the city, but public safety and addition of possibly new officers, more officers, is a priority.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of what direction we go with it, I don't think it's fair to staff. I don't think it's fair to department heads to try to cram something in right now. But I definitely, let's take the time and let's spend the time looking at it, and let's come up with some kind of resolution that we can all live with. You know, a couple months worth of studies and a little research on it's a lot better than a week's worth of, because we're not going to fix it overnight. Wish we could, but let's start now. Karen, you got?
No, I agree. I think we should start some long-term planning and get that rolling along as we can.
Because we're only a few months away from the next fiscal year. We can. I would like to see some kind of resolutions brought forward. Whether it might be favorable for everybody, it might not. But at least we're going to spend some time looking at it and come up with what is best for our community and our employees. Anybody else got anything else?
I agree.
So do I have a motion?
That being said, I'll make a motion that mayor and council approve the proposed budget adjustment as depicted in Exhibit A and B, and receive the mid-year budget report as presented.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. We still do not have. We still got a little item anyways.
Is that the last one, Christian, or what?
Well, we'll just move to number 11. And it would be review and adopt resolution 0222-2022-01, a resolution adopting without revision the city's conflict of interest code.
I can handle that one. So, under the Political Reform Act, every 2 years, the city is required to take a look at its conflict of interest code. This year, we've reviewed it myself, the city clerk, and the city manager, and determined that no changes are needed. Essentially, a lot of these roles are already defined by the government code, myself, the city manager, and a few others included. The rest are included within the documents provided. Overall, it's what you need to disclose as far as your interest in the community, and that's been submitted to the city through a statement of economic interest. That's the gist of it. However, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
That's pretty straightforward. Yeah. If nobody has any questions or comments, we have a motion.
I move mayor and council review the city's existing conflict of interest code and move to adopt resolution number 02-22-2022-01 to approve without any revisions the city according conflict of interest code.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous.
I should have taken longer.
All right. Do you want to take on item number 9, or do we want to table it until the next meeting?
On it, it's the preference of the council.
Get out of here early or late.
We can table it until the next meeting. If you can't make it, you can give us a snapshot of what it is. That'll give you a little more time to prep for giving a presentation.
It's
So-
fine, I mean, I can give a synopsis based on the staff items, but it's.
What's your guys' preference?
Well, if you're comfortable with it, I mean, get it out of the way, I don't care.
Okay.
One way or the other.
You good with that? Item number 9, presentation and acceptance of annual city audit fiscal year 2020-2021.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Normally, I would simply introduce the city auditors on Reynolds and leave it to him to do the update. But on behalf of Dawn, I will give the presentation tonight for the fiscal year 2020-2021 annual city audit. We did receive a clear audit or a clean audit, which I'm not going to go through what his legal terminology is, but I can provide that to you in writing. Essentially, he didn't find anything of material concern regarding the finances. I'll start off with the general fund, and I'll move through what's called the management discussion and analysis. It's basically my interpretation of the audit, trying to make it easier to read and understand for the public. So if you don't find it easy to read and understand, then please come to me, then it means I'm not being clear enough with the numbers.
That's this. This is hard to understand.
That is hard to understand. Hopefully you find the management discussion and analysis a little bit easier to understand.
Very much so.
So we'll focus on tables 3 and 4 of what I call the MD&A, that's the management discussion and analysis. And we'll look at actual general fund revenues and expenditure data for fiscal year 2020-2021 as compared to that same data for fiscal year 1920. You will note that as shown in table 3, revenues increased by $770,967, or 11.13% from the previous year. These increases were largely due to increases in sales and use taxes. Fortunately, due to auto sales and the Wayfair decision, which requires sales tax to be paid on internet purchases, regardless of whether the business has a physical presence in the state, largely offset fuel sales tax losses. It's not that we didn't receive any fuel sales tax, it just was a low point from the previous year. From table 4, you will note expenditures increased in fiscal year 2020-21 by $340,333, or 6.16% from fiscal year 1920. Most notably, these increases were due to increases in public safety expenditures. When I say public safety, it also includes fire in this Then moving on to fiscal year 2020-21 budget versus actual. So last year when I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but last year when I presented the budget, I was very proud of how close we were in terms of budget versus actual. Due to COVID and other anticipated or unanticipated revenue sources and expenditures, we didn't come as close as we did in previous years. And so within that, we also received a significant amount of one-time American Recovery Plan Act funds received, almost to the tune of $1 million that was completely unanticipated, that did increase the general fund balance of the city. Other funds, which are enterprise funds that the city has little control over the use. The water fund ended with a positive change in net position of $58,928. The water fund in the last few years has been a fund of my greatest concern because we have to satisfy our rate covenant, otherwise it impacts the city's credit rating. As you may recall, that is one of the reasons why I asked for a rate increase 2 years ago, was to make sure we were satisfying the city's rate covenant. If we don't satisfy our rate covenant, if it's just for the water fund, unfortunately, it still impacts the credit rating of the city as a whole. The sewer fund data is presented in table 6 and also shows a change in net position of $277,498 at the close of fiscal year 2020-2021. I'd like to qualify that because we don't depreciate or budget for capital replacement for pipes in the ground based on estimates, kind of shots in the dark of what future costs would be. That's part of the reason why we have a contract with the Chico State Geographical Information Center. What they're doing is they're taking our as-built plan and entering data on what size pipe we have, what type of pipe, how old the pipe is in the ground, so we can better project future needs of the city on an infrastructure basis. And so that's in the works. It's a pretty big project, and as we've had staffing issues, that was one of the things that kind of got pushed to the wayside so that other absolute work had to be done. So it's in process. There's other specialized funds. The city actually has an interesting way that it funds, and we have many different funds of the city. And you'll see those in ancillary pages of the audit. New this year is Fund 005, which was created to track the American Recovery Plan Act funds received. We received almost $1 million just prior to the close of fiscal year 2020-2021, and we should receive another tranche of that funding at close to the end of this fiscal year that we're in right now.
7 o'clock.
It's okay. That funding, at least initially, has been directed to staff to work on a water and sewer crossing onto the west side of I-5, and that's at the initial stages. The final guidance has just been issued by the U.S. Department of Treasury, and I'm in the process of reading and analyzing the 460-page final guidance. But I do believe it will be an eligible expense.
Those funds are very limited on what we can spend them on, correct?
Absolutely. Exhibits D1 through D3 show the city's enterprise funds, which consist of sewer, solid waste, airport, transportation center, and water funds. New this year is that because we're no longer billing for solid waste, one of the benefits is that we're also not accruing the bad debt from solid waste. So prior to our most recent agreement with Waste Management, we paid Waste Management the full amount due regardless of whether we were paid. So that was a huge achievement in that renegotiation of the agreement. Exhibits E1 through E3 show the 3 trust funds. We have the J.T. Levy Scholarship Fund, the Roger Theater Trust, and the Rydell Library Fund that are also special enterprise funds, trust funds that can only be used for specific purposes. And with that, I'm more than happy to entertain any questions by the council or the public.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I'm good.
You get real bored, you can try to understand this report. I've tried to read it year after year, and I get through it a little bit, and I start getting lost with all the verbiage. I like this a lot better. I know he gets a little lost when he's describing it to us normally. I just like the fact that there's never anything alarming in it. Since I've been on council, we've never had a report come back that, like, hey, what the hell's going on here? So I'm very pleased to have these type of audits year after year. So if nobody has any further discussion, I have a motion.
I make a motion, Mayor, council members, receive and accept the annual audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So passed unanimous. Thank you for not making us put that off. All right, that moves us on to communications, correspondence, and information. Anything this week? No. Reports from council.
I just had Parkhead board meeting, basically, anything to report?
Nothing? You didn't attend no mills or anything last weekend?
What?
No dinners? No dinners? Nice. Chewy?
Oh, yeah. So, we talked about our last meeting, merging with the chamber. So now I have the dates for the Corning Tuesday night market, April 5th, May 3rd, September 6th, October 4th. And those will run from 5 to 8, and more details to follow.
What was the date?
I'll give it to you. It's April 5th, May 3rd, September 6th, October 4th.
September 6th and October 4th?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have to say that we had a coordinating meeting at the senior center, and I had Christina there, and I just said, look, guys, we need to get some stuff done, and I was really glad to see that Chrissy made herself available for a meeting, and the board members from the chamber got together. We had lunch at the senior center last Tuesday, and we have a meeting next Monday, the first Tuesday. They were really on board with helping us get our taco nights, our truck nights, a little bit better, some things worked around, and it's going to be really good.
Judy, I was going to ask you a question. Are those events you're talking about, they're going to do away with the Thursday night market? Those will take place?
Yes.
It sounds like it's going to be a collaborative effort. I was very pleased. I talked with Chrissy Meads last week after you guys discussed it, and she was very, very happy to have some help moving forward. I think it'll make the event better, so much appreciation to the chamber for stepping up, and hopefully we can make this a great event moving forward. I have nothing else. If nobody from the audience has anything, meeting adjourned. Go ahead.
This Saturday, the 26th, the Exchange Club is once again doing their law enforcement and emergency responder awards. Doors open at 5, dinner at 6.
At Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall.
So we always want to slow down.
This Saturday?
This Saturday, yes, ma'am.
Can you wait till Jeremiah tells us
Tom, do you have anything?
No, I don't. I'll be there.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned. You want to?
Thanks for taking that short, please.
Everybody does.